What's going on, everyone? Welcome into Forward Progress, Week 15, Best Bets Edition, right here on the Forward Progress YouTube channel, part of the Hammer Betting Network, presented by FanDuel. I'm Rob Pizzola, joined by Judah, by Hitman, and stepping in for Suma this week is Austin Mock from The Athletic. Welcome, Austin. Good to see you again. Suma is gallivanting somewhere in Germany. Don't know what he's up to today. Maybe playing some Bundesliga futures. I don't know what else there possibly is to do in Germany on, I guess it would be 8 p.m. Eastern time, something like that right now. Probably still depressed, honestly, from his Saints loss last week. We'll talk about that in just 1 second here. Last week, a very on-brand 2-2 record for the best bets. Hitman gets there by the hook on the Jets. That's why the price shopping is very important. Oh, we gave him a push on the show. I don't know. I thought it was a 6.5. We're going to have to review the tape. I squeaked out a Packers win on Thursday night.
I think he gave me the win. I think I was 6-5 coming in the last week.
Okay, we just got last week as a dash. Well, I remember 6.5. I remember 6.5 as the spread. Judah, Suma, heartbreaking loss on the Saints. I bet that in real life too. I get it, man. That was a tough one to get over on Sunday. Nothing from the Giants offense till a garbage time drive. They get the 2-point conversion on an incredible Malik Neighbors play. Demario Davis, for some reason, can't knock down a fourth down pass. Instead, intercepts it 20 yards downfield. Comedy of errors, and it's been that kind of year. If we were an actual NFL team, I think we would be the fire everybody and rebuild type of team this year. Chicago Bears, New York Giants, something like that. But hey, we're sticking to it. This week, we're going to cover games where we have thoughts or opinions per usual. We'll give you as much insight as we can. Hopefully some winners, whether you're tailing us, whether you're fading us, or you're just in it for the entertainment, the breakdowns, whatever. We're here. If you enjoy the show, don't forget to hit that like button down below, sub to the channel. Make sure you share it with your friends as well. Let's get into it, guys. Week 15 in the NFL. Hope springs eternal. Let's go. We're starting off with the Commanders and the New Orleans Saints. Money today on the Washington Commanders in market. This number has gone up to pretty much 7.5 across the board, including at FanDuel right now. Hitman, we're going to start it off with you this week. Commanders and Saints, break it down for us. What are you seeing in this matchup?
I still like Washington, even at 7.5, minus 105 at FanDuel. For me, it just comes down to, and I'm curious to get your guys' thoughts about this hot take or whatever, but I think that the Saints have a pretty similar power rating, like not better, but pretty similar, same tier as the Giants. This roster, if you just break it down, like they have arguably the league's worst quarterback, the league's worst pass catchers. They have a terrible defense. They have a terrible head coach, definitely a worse coach and worse head coach than the Giants, in my opinion. And this is like Brandon Thorne's of Established Run's 28th ranked offensive line. I know that the Giants are 32. And when I mentioned to Rob earlier, my take, Rob said, well, the Giants offensive line is catastrophically bad. So the gap from 32 to 28 is significant, which I can agree with. But it's a Saints team that had 4.4 yards per play against the Giants last week with Derek Carr at quarterback. This year, they've averaged 4.6 yards per play without Carr on the field. This defense looked formidable last week, I think solely just because they played the Giants. In a few previous weeks, they allowed 6 yards per play to the Rams, 6.3 yards per play to Cleveland, 6.4 yards per play to Atlanta. This is a defense that ranks 30th in the NFL in success rate against a run. Washington is first on offense. And I just think that a lot of Washington's struggles and Jaden Daniels' struggles a few weeks ago, it seems like it was probably health related. They dominated a Titans defense before the bye in a way that not many teams have dominated their defense this season. And now coming off the bye with an extra week of rest, I presume that Jaden Daniels is 100% now, and I think that we could attribute some of their offensive struggles earlier to injury. But yeah, I'm curious what everyone's thoughts are. Am I crazy for thinking the Saints are closer to the Giants than the market says?
Yeah, I'll give my take at the end of this here, but interested, Judah, on and Austin, on your end, how do you rank the Saints in market right now with what they got going on offense? Are they considered like a true bottom tier team, Judah, for you?
I mean, yes, I think the offensive line is a little bit better. They've gotten a lot healthier, and that should kind of elevate the floor. And I agree with Rob that like there's a massive difference between the Giants right now and basically everyone else. And there's a huge gap. I have more faith in their offensive coordinator and their ability to run the ball, but I think they have some floor that I don't think the Giants have right now. But yeah, this is a disaster of a team. I think there's no denying it. And like the drop off from Carr to, I don't even know if it's going to be Rattler or Hayner. I don't think it really matters. This is a terrible team right now.
Yeah, Austin, you're in agreement?
Yeah, I was say we don't even know who the quarterback's going to be, and I don't know if anybody can confidently say one is better than the other. Probably the worst quarterback situation, or one of, in the NFL. Offensive line, I don't think it's bottom of the league, but it's right there. So this is a bottom three offense for me.
Yeah, I still think the Giants are much worse for the reasons I mentioned to Hitman this morning. They could potentially be down 4 starters on the O-line going into this week. But I think the Saints are also a disaster. I mean, they could barely move the ball on the Giants last week with Carr in there for most of the game. We have seen this Saints offense run with backup quarterbacks already this year. And that was with the luxury of playing with Taysom Hill. Chris Olave was still healthy. Even Rashid Shaheed played in that Bucs game earlier this year where Carr didn't play, and they put up some of the worst success rate numbers you'll see from any offense all season long. To me, it's very easy to price the Saints, honestly. They're a really bad team. I think where there might be market disagreement in this game is how to price the Commanders, because Washington's been up and down all year, and going into the bye week, they had a very strong offensive effort against the Tennessee Titans, but that's really one of their last 4 or 5 games where the offenses look succinct. Do you price them higher now off the bye, expecting Jaden Daniels to be healthy and things of that nature? Ultimately, I do think Washington can run the ball all over New Orleans in this game. They have a dual threat quarterback, obviously, as well. I don't know that this is the buy point for me necessarily on Washington now that we have, crossed 7 into 7.5. But we did see some market resistance yesterday. There was a release on the Saints yesterday. There are some people in market that like to play these backup quarterback angles as well. And should this get back down to a flat 7, I think that would be a pretty strong bet on the Commanders, who I think should move the ball at ease in this game. All right. I'm going to go a little bit out of order today, not necessarily rotation number order, because I want to make sure to get everyone involved as much as possible. We're going to skip ahead here to the Bengals and the Titans in the AFC. Obviously, very lucky win, much to my chagrin, for the Cincinnati Bengals on Monday Night Football against the Dallas Cowboys. The punt block, which ended up being a catastrophic error by Dallas. Cincinnati recovers, score a touchdown to Jamar Chase in the game. Not a ton of market movement in this game so far this week. We're seeing FanDuel at an expensive 4.5 right now. Most sports books at 5. A little bit of under money over the course of the last day here. Now dipping down below 47. Judah, you were the one with an opinion on this game. You liked Cincinnati against Dallas last week, and you did get the W, even though I would argue was a lucky one. Are you going back to the well on the Bengals this week?
That's right. Definitely a lucky one. I am going back to the well with the Bengals. I think this is a very overrated Tennessee pass defense, and I think a lot of that comes from earlier in the season. I mean, over the last 5 weeks, they've basically allowed every team they've faced, with the exception of the Texans, where they generate a bunch of turnovers, to have positive EPA per plays. They're averaging about 0.16 during that span. It's not a great pass defense. I mean, how many more times do we have to talk about the Bengals putting up offense and still finding ways to lose? But I think what it points to is the kind of low variance nature of the Bengals offense. They're going to be able to score points. And on the other side, Tennessee's a wild card. And yes, the Cincinnati defense has been horrible, but that's not necessarily something that Tennessee can take advantage of. Their pass rush also has been getting going as of late. Trey Hendrickson, I think, should be firmly in the conversation for Defensive Player of the Year. Leads the NFL in sacks for what it's worth. And Tennessee's offensive line is in complete shambles right now. They couldn't take advantage of a Jacksonville defense, which has been by far the worst in pass defense all season. Will Levis is just a naturally volatile quarterback. I'm not sure Tennessee's going to be able to keep up, and I think Cincinnati has a pretty low variance spot, and the market's a bit too high on Tennessee's defense, and certainly so in this matchup.
All right, Judah going with the Bengals in this matchup here. Moving along here, and we're going to stick in the AFC. Kansas City Chiefs continue to find ways to win games and not cover games. Looked pretty easy for them in the first half against the Chargers. A completely different story in the second half. Chargers managed to come back. Ultimately, Kansas City gets the small win, and they continue to do it. Money on the Browns ever since open in this game. FanDuel sitting at 4.5 right now. Lots of books across the board are sitting right down at 4 in this game. Austin, going to go to you here. Kansas City, Cleveland. Break down the matchup for us. What do you like in this game?
Yeah, so this is more of a fade of Cleveland and what their offense has become under Jameis Winston. I think when you're thinking of Jameis, you have to understand of how low the lows can really get. He's a gunslinger. Like everybody knows it. We saw that a couple weeks ago with the multiple pick six. But I think this Chiefs defense will be able to throw enough at him, blitzing from different areas, being able to not show him the entire picture, to where he isn't comfortable in that set. We saw Pittsburgh kind of shut him down. He was like that performance against Pittsburgh they came back in. I know they missed some field goals as well, but he just doesn't have the ability to. I don't have any confidence in him moving the ball consistently against a quality defense because of the backbreaking turnovers and everything. So I would say I lean KC here because of that. I think we've kind of overrated Winston because he is like better probably somehow than Deshaun Watson has been. And we kind of got the market got a little high on them. But I think KC's defense is good enough to slow them down. The problem is, I don't know if I really want to lay more than a field goal. I don't even know if you can lay a field goal with Kansas City anymore, because they just are not interested in winning the price, covering a game. So I am on board with KC. It's more of like maybe I'll throw him in some money line parlays or something like that. But I do lean KC here. I think this could be a game where they finally do cover.
Yeah, interestingly enough, some books have really started to adjust the KC money line numbers where they're disproportionate to the spread numbers because they continuously end up winning these types of games. It's a really fascinating team to break down right now. One more game here before talk about our show sponsor here, FanDuel. I'm going to talk a little bit about Miami and Houston. A lot of AFC games in a row here for us. Houston in this market right now is basically out to 3 in a lot of spots, or a really expensive 2.5. I'm very closely monitoring the status of Teron Armstead for the Miami Dolphins. Don't really have a lot of interest in playing the Dolphins if Armstead is out. However, if he does play, I do like Miami in this spot. And part of it is I think a lot of people tend to overrate the bye week for specific teams. Houston did go into the bye week with some injuries in the secondary. Jalen Petrie was hurt. They're going to be healthier in this particular game, but I don't think that this is a team that is ever going to get away from what they have done consistently this year, which is run heavily on first and second down with very poor success rates and have CJ Stroud try to bail them out on third down. I'm not high on the Dolphins defense. There's certainly holes. We saw it against the Jets last week. But when we look at the Texans offense this year, their overall success rate in the last 7 weeks of the season is dead last in the NFL. Particularly on third downs, they can't convert. They're converting at a 30th in third down percentage in the past 5 weeks at 34%. And this is just not an optimal way to run an offense. And on the other side of things, all right, we've seen Tua struggle against good defenses before over the course of his career. But remember, that Miami offense was built very differently in years past, where they were reliant on explosive plays. And we saw teams take that away. This year, it's very different. Tua leads all quarterbacks in time to throw, getting the ball out of his hands in 2.3 seconds. Everything is underneath. One of the reasons I liked Miami to score a lot of points against the Jets last week was because the Jets miss a lot of tackles, 4th most in the league. The Texans have the 3rd most missed tackles in the entire league. They also don't tackle well as a team. So I think Miami can get their playmakers out into space. They will struggle to run the ball, but they basically run the ball. Like this short passing game makes up for a lot of the runs as well. So it's tough. I get it. It's an ugly team to watch at times, the Miami Dolphins right now. But at a flat 3 with Armstead in, I'm very interested in the Dolphins, not only on the spread, but on the money line as well. All right. Before we get into our next game here, reminder, make sure you bet the NFL season on FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. I'm a huge fan of the product. I use it every day. Great options available to us bettors. Really fair, especially with prop limits. Great in-game product, which we leverage a lot here on our Forward Progress live watch-alongs. Overall, pound for pound, best product in the space right now, in my opinion. And right now, all customers get a profit boost every single NFL game day. That means you can pump up your gridiron winnings multiple times a week. For Thursday Night Football tomorrow, there's a live profit boost token. There's a to catch a pass profit boost token. On Sunday this week, a same game parlay profit boost token on any game on the slate. Make sure you're using those things. It's just another way to try to increase your wins, get really good prices on some stuff out there. FanDuel has tons of ways you can get in on the NFL action. You can bet money lines, spreads, player props, and more. Plus, with super simple live betting, lightning fast bet settlement, and instant withdrawals, FanDuel makes betting on the NFL easier than ever before. Just visit FanDuel.com/forwardprogress to download FanDuel today. You must be 21 plus and present in select states, or 18 plus and present in DC. Opt-in required. Bonus issued as non-withdrawable profit boost tokens. Restrictions apply, including token expiration. See terms for offers at sportsbook.fanduel.com. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER or visit fanduel.com/RG. Call 1-888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org/chat in Connecticut. Visit mdgamblinghelp.org in Maryland. Hope is here. Visit gamblinghelplinema.org or call 800-327-5050 for 24/7 support of Massachusetts, 1-877-8-HOPE-NY, or text HOPE-NY in New York. Okay, keep it moving here. We're now going over to the NFC. It is the Carolina Panthers favored in a game. It's been a few years. The Eric Eager effect, it's happening, people. It's finally paid off. Took us all the way to week 15 of the regular season. But the Panthers getting a lot of market support here. Being bet up even further today against the Dallas Cowboys. Now a lot of -2.5, -120 in market. Total in the game is 42.5. Going to go to you here, Hitman, on this particular game. Lots of market support for Carolina. Do you agree with that?
Yeah, I lean towards Carolina at 2.5. I know somebody in the chat mentioned about the spread last week in the Eagles-Panthers game. Listen, I mean, Carolina's been upgraded a lot since that game. I mean, for Bryce Young to do that against a legitimately really good defense and essentially throw a game-winning touchdown, which obviously didn't come to fruition with Xavier Legette dropping it, like, it was impressive. And it kind of started to make me a believer that Bryce Young, this improvement might be legit. Just their last 3 games in general, it's probably as impressive of a 3-game losing streak as you could possibly have, with absolute coin flip losses against Tampa, the Chiefs, and Philly, 3 playoff teams, 2 of them being Super Bowl contenders. The Bryce Young improvement, like, one of the big things that he's improved upon is his pocket movement. He's taken a sack on only 10% of his pressures since returning, which is 4th best in the NFL. He's 10th in yards per attempt under pressure, where previously he was absolutely terrible when under pressure, which is important because he's probably still going to be under pressure in this game against Dallas's pass rush. They're 18th in offensive EPA since Bryce Young took back over. The defense, which we were saying was historically bad at one point, has actually, like, they're still not good, but they've actually been semi-respectable during this stretch. And Dallas, like, for all everybody's talking about, like, how much they've been upgraded over the past few weeks to where they were against Washington when they're 11-point underdogs in Washington. But they have the worst offense EPA-wise in the NFL since Cooper Rush took over. Like, Cooper Rush's completion percentage over expected this season is only better than Drew Lock. His success rate is only better than Will Levis. So I think that at minus 2.5, it's a spot that I would lean towards Carolina.
Yeah, hard to be like not notice the change in Bryce Young's play in the last few weeks. I was also pretty impressed with how the Panthers defense held up. There was a point in the middle of the season, I want to say like 5-6 weeks ago, where they had so many injuries in the front seven. They were one of the worst defenses I had ever graded out. And now just starting to see them play a lot better. Not that it's going to be a great defense moving forwards, but I don't think they're anywhere near where they were at the bottom in market either. The Battle of Pennsylvania coming up next. This is Austin's backyard here. Steelers and Eagles. Looks increasingly likely that George Pickens will not be available for this game. Hasn't officially been ruled out yet, but dealing with a soft tissue injury, and it's not looking good for Pickens right now. Eagles at FanDuel have been bet out to a 5.5-point favorite in market. Some other books still hanging 5 out there. Total in the game down to 42.5. This is expected to be cold. Might see some rain or inclement weather as well, which would not be unusual for a Philadelphia home game in mid-December. We're going to go over to Judah here to start. We have some opinions on both the side and the total in the game. I'll let you start with the side here, Judah.
Yeah, I lean towards Pittsburgh at 5.5 here. I think the angle that I kind of keep coming back to is this is a Steelers pass rush in particular that I think projects as the best in the NFL going forward. I mean, since they got Nick Herbig back, they've had a quick pressure of 30% or higher in every game. Aggregated over the course of the season, not exactly the best statistical practice to take a small sample and aggregate it to the full sample, but would be the best in the NFL. And quite frankly, I'm not sure we've ever seen an edge group as good as what the Steelers have right now since they returned Alex Highsmith. And that matters in particular against Jalen Hurts and a Eagles passing attack, which has been terrible. And yes, they have great tackles, but when Hurts has seen pressure and he's also creating so much pressure of his own, he has the third highest pressure to sack rate. It's only worse. Only Will Levis and Caleb Williams have a higher pressure to sack rate. And also, this is a Steelers team, and I don't think it's a coincidence that TJ Watt forces as many fumbles as he does, given the types of pass rush moves that he often uses. And I think it's going to be very difficult for Philadelphia to kind of sustain drive level success. Yes, the Steelers have not been a great run defense, and the Eagles can certainly continue on the ground, but it's just a very fragile style of offense, especially given I think this passing attack can struggle. And on the other side of the ball, I mean, Russell Wilson has generated so much of his success from the deep ball. He's gained like in some of EPA, like 50 points via the deep pass and has lost 10 on non-deep passes. That is by its nature just like, and certainly because Russell Wilson also scrambles a lot, which tends to mitigate some of the effects of a matchup. It's going to come down, I think, the Steelers' offensive success to whether these deep balls connect. Obviously, it's less likely with Pickens, but there is still a decent shot of that. And I think when I kind of look at the fundamentals, 5.5 is a lot of points for a Eagles offense that I don't think is going to be able to have a ton of success. Certainly not given this pass rush battle. I just can't get to 5.5.
All right, that's a case for the Pittsburgh Steelers there. And yeah, I mean, listen, subjectively, I've been someone who has wanted to play against the Steelers a lot recently. We're starting to get to a point where, man, I might end up being on the Steelers. All the people who accuse me of hating this team might be the team that they might hate me actually even more once they bet the Steelers and they finally lose and get blown out. Hitman, over to you here. Total in the game. You're thinking this might be a lower scoring game.
Yeah, lean towards the under. You mentioned the weather. I don't think it's going to be anything major, but any potential rain showers would just add to the handicap. Obviously, the Eagles are the run heaviest offense in the league. No one is even close to their negative 9% pass rate over expectation on the season. It's been even more extreme over the last month. It's been close to 13%. As Judah mentioned, the Eagles' pass offense struggles, I think, have been real with Jalen Hurts just not pulling the trigger to what looked like on a lot of the film guys' review last week to just open receivers. Pittsburgh likely doesn't allow them, I think, to just run all over them like some teams have. Like specifically, the game that comes to mind was that Rams game against Saquon Barkley, which got pushed over the total due to Barkley just absolutely torching them. Barkley's obviously going to get his yards, but I do think it's a matchup where they just don't absolutely let him go crazy. Judah mentioned Hurts struggles against pressure historically, and Pittsburgh's pass rush, or at least edge rushers right now, could arguably be the best in the NFL. And for the Steelers, like, this is a run-heavy offense also, 27th in pass rate over expectation. But this George Pickens injury for Pittsburgh, like, he has to be one of the most valuable wide receivers in the NFL, just considering the lack of depth around Russell Wilson and the way that Russell Wilson has won since he took over as the starting quarterback is throwing a lot of 50-50 deep balls that to George Pickens, those are probably 60-40 deep balls. They have an alarming lack of depth around George Pickens at wide receiver, arguably the worst wide receivers in the league next to him. Pittsburgh's offense without him last week, I know that they scored 27 points and it was 27-6 in that game at one point, but it's still a game that they only had 4.3 yards per play without him. Their offense, as I mentioned, has been predicated off the deep ball, and Philly is second best in the NFL defensively in explosive play rate. So, just some concerns for Pittsburgh without George Pickens in this one. And the Philly passing game concerns, I think, are legitimate right now also.
All right. Got an opinion on side and total in Steelers and Eagles. We'll go from one marquee game to another. It's a battle of heavyweights at Ford Field in Detroit. Lions coming off a field goal victory over the Packers. They remain at home on extra rest against the Buffalo Bills, who played one of the best games, I'd say, not only this year, but maybe in the past few years against the Rams last week. A true barn burner. That word gets thrown around a little bit too much, but that one last week was a real barn burner. Detroit has been bet out over the course of the last day, up to -2.5 flat. Total on Sunday night was 53.5. It's gone through 54, which is a smaller key number when it comes to totals in the NFL, up to 54.5. Austin, I'm going to go over to you for this one. It's the Lions and the Bills. What are you making of this game?
Yeah, I think not that there's any bad matchup for this Lions offense, but I think they do particularly match up well against this Bills defense. Obviously, they're good at both sides, both running the ball and passing the ball. Goff has been, great for most of this year. Their rushing attack is, top 3 in the league. Where I think that they're going to actually have an advantage here is against the Bills' pass defense. Obviously, we saw last week Matthew Stafford and Puka Nacua were just lighting them up all over the field. But this is a team that is 5th worst in dropback success rate this year when stripping out garbage time. So I do think that the Bills are going to struggle to keep this passing offense at bay, which is bad news, because now if they're going to have to put numbers towards stopping the pass, then the Lions are going to be able to do what they want to do, and that's run and really wear you down over the course of the game. So I think this could play out similarly to the game last week against the Bills and Rams, where both teams can score. I think you could see some high points here, but I think that the edge that the Lions should have in the passing offense here, I think, is what gets them over the top here. So I'd lean with the Lions -2.5.
Yeah, I have a few thoughts on this game, because my original inclination last week when taking a look at the look-aheads was that I wanted to be on Buffalo in this game for all of the injuries that the Lions had suffered, right? The handicap for Green Bay, to me, was pretty simple. This Lions front seven is decimated. Green Bay did not run the ball as effectively as I would have thought, considering DJ Reader was out, Ali McNeil got hurt. Jack Campbell is a beast in the middle of that defense and somehow overcomes a lot in terms of being able to stop the run for that particular team. And then Rasul Douglas got hurt for Buffalo in the Rams game, and they were just getting killed through the air. I don't think Khair Ilum can come in and really play with the Lions here. And then you get the positive Ali McNeil news as well, which he's progressing through concussion protocol and is very likely to actually play in this game this week. And I think things are actually kind of working in the other direction now, where I'm starting to talk myself into the Lions side. I don't know what I'm going to do with this game. I haven't bet it yet. It scares me to death betting against Josh Allen, but it is what it is. XF says Rasul Douglas was the one getting torched. He was. He's also a great quarterback. Don't know what else to say there. Not having him on the field is 100% going to be impactful because there's going to be a worse player on the field if that's not evident. All right. Colts and Broncos, AFC matchup. Interesting because we didn't see either of these teams play last week. Both these teams coming off of a bye. Indianapolis had some offensive line injuries going into the bye week. Braden Smith is probably going to be out again with a personal issue that he's dealing with. But the Colts do look like they're going to be a lot healthier in this particular game. It's been one-way action towards Indianapolis ever since this number opened up at 5.5 on the early openers here. FanDuel's down to 3.5. There's still some books in market that are holding at 4. Hitman, what do we do here with the Colts and Broncos?
Yeah, leaning towards the Colts. Shop, as you mentioned, a lot of +4s are out there right now. I'm still just not 100% sold on Denver being anything but very slightly above average. Their wins this season have come against Cleveland in a game that, I mean, they won by 9, but they could have very easily lost that game outright. Vegas, Atlanta, Carolina, the Saints, Jets, and Tampa early in the year was a pretty impressive win. But I think that the Riley Moss potential injury for this game is really important. You noticed without him that Levi Wallace against Cleveland got absolutely torched as his replacement, and it's a defense that is so aggressive with their man coverage. The Colts, on the other hand, have had an extremely difficult strength of schedule in recent weeks, recent games. New England as the easy one, but Detroit, the Jets, Buffalo, Minnesota, and Houston. I just think that it's a defense that is a little bit undervalued now. For the year, they're 12th in EPA per play and 16th in success rate. But a large part of the year, especially in the beginning of the year, they were just absolutely decimated by injuries. And now as they've gotten healthier, they've played a lot better. And it has been against a pretty tough schedule, as mentioned, of opposing offenses. As mentioned earlier, receiver-wise, Josh Downs looks like he's probably going to be back for this game. The offensive line is, as you mentioned, is going to probably be without Braden Smith, but it does appear that they're getting Ryan Kelly back in this game as he was activated off IR. I just think that the Colts are a little bit undervalued right now, and that Denver is just a little bit overvalued. So I just have I have the margin between these teams a little bit closer than the market does. So I like the Colts +4.
Yeah, I think at 4, it's more challenging for me, honestly. I didn't get as much on the Colts, I think, as you did earlier this week, Hitman. But this particular matchup, like, I don't want to dismiss what Denver's done offensively because Bo Nix has played a lot better down the stretch. But they've had this run recently of KC, who has a really bad pass defense, Atlanta minus all of their corners, basically, Las Vegas without 2 starting corners, and then Cleveland, where, frankly, they were pretty lucky to cover that game. I think we can all agree. Offense looked good at times, but Jameis was a disaster at times as well. And the Indy D is playing a lot better than people give them credit for. I mean, we look at the latter half of the season here, they're pretty much middle-of-the-road defense in EPA per drive, EPA per play. And that's with them really struggling on third down. 31st in opposing conversion percentage at 49%. Early down success, more predictive of future success in the long run. So I'm kind of with you here. I'm hoping to get, I think maybe we might get some resistance at some point on Denver and hope to get a better price. But I like the handicap there, Hitman, as well. Switching over here, we got Justin Herbert taking on Baker Mayfield. It's the Chargers and the Bucks, 2 teams that I've yet to figure out this season. Market in this one is sitting at -3, -104 at FanDuel in favor of the Chargers. Total 46.5. I can't figure these teams out. Judah, though, hopefully you can. You have an opinion on this game.
Yeah, I like Tampa Bay here. on the spread and money line, even some alts. I think this is a Tampa offense, which is pretty underrated by virtually any metric you want to use to capture offensive success. They're going to show up in the top 5, top 10, especially as you go more towards the drive level. They've been great running the ball. They've been good passing, and even as they've dealt with some injuries. And the Chargers defense has been shredded in basically every game against a competent offense. I don't know what you want to call it. Atlanta of last week, maybe that's the exception, although a lot of that was due to some turnovers. They haven't been a great defense, and they've faced an incredibly easy set of opponents. And on the other side of the ball, the Tampa Bay has blitzed over the last 4 weeks 60% of the time, which is an increase from about like 35% where they were earlier in the season. And the result is a team that's generating a ton more pressure. They lead the NFL in quick pressure over that span at 34%, which is a massive, massive number. And the blitz is an area where Justin Herbert has struggled. And he's taking a lot of sacks. His sack rate is 10%. His pressure to sack rate when being blitzed is 23%. These are all in the bottom percentiles of the NFL. And he's been one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL, kept clean, and has struggled a bit against pressure. And I also wouldn't discount the fact that Herbert had dealt with some injuries earlier in the season, seemingly got healthy, was scrambling around and moving in the pocket. And he hurt his ankle last Sunday night. Or his hip or whatever, excuse me, not his ankle. He hurt his hip or his leg, which affected his mobility, and he was looking to run a lot less in the second half of that game post-injury, and I think that's going to matter in this spot against a very aggressive Tampa defense, which has increased their blitz rate, led to a lot more pressure. I think that's going to continue, and Tampa Bay offense has been scoring all year, and I think they're going to continue to score against a pretty overrated Chargers defense.
Yeah, really interesting. You mentioned the ankle. You're not wrong because Chris Rim, who is it covers the Chargers for ESPN, he tweeted not too long ago, Jim Harbaugh on if he expects Justin Herbert to practice today. We'll see. He said Justin has an ankle injury in addition to the leg contusion as well. So that's going to be something to monitor this week. Whenever I see quarterbacks on the injury report early in the week, the spidey sense goes off because typically the market prices these guys as if they're healthy. It's really hard, especially when you're modeling games, to determine the extent of an injury. So we'll see what goes on with that particular game. Shifting gears here, we got the Cardinals at home against the New England Patriots. Patriots off a bye week. The Cardinals struggling in recent weeks, 3 straight losses, really hurting their chances of a postseason appearance. I thought the market movement in this game was extremely interesting over the course of the past few days. New England got bet extremely heavily yesterday. At least that was my perspective on it. Could have been an air move, could have been someone trying to fake the market. There's lots of stuff that it could have been, but New England got all the way down to a 4.5 point underdog in the game. It's since been bet up to 6.5 across the board. Total in the game, anywhere between 46 and 46.5 right now. I'll go to you here, Austin. You had multiple opinions on this game. Arizona, New England. What are you looking at here?
Yeah, so I do like this matchup for Arizona to get back on track. Everybody's been, I've seen it on, I don't even watch ESPN that much, and I feel like every time I see it, there's the pressure stats when Kyler Murray faces pressure versus when he doesn't. I don't think the Patriots are going to be able to consistently generate pressure against this Cardinals offense because they've been trending down. They started the year decent at getting pressure, but they've trended down the latter half of the year here. So I do think this is a spot where Kyler Murray can work in a clean pocket and be able to move the ball down the field. And I think it's just more of a buy low spot on the Arizona. Now it's up to 6.5. That's a little steep for my liking. I liked it better when, as Rob said, the price was at 6 or lower there. But I also think that Drake May should have some success in this game as well. It's not going to be a Patriots offense to where they're not going to be able to score, which again kind of contradicts himself. But I do think this over has some run or room of value as well. I think both teams can move the ball. Drake May has been pretty solid as a rookie. I'm not a huge believer in the Cardinals defense, but I think the Cardinals offense has the edge here and can cover this spread.
All right. We have Sunday Night Football, which is the Seahawks and the Packers this week. honestly, lots of good games this week. It's shaping up to be a really good week 15 in the NFL. That's what happens when no teams are on buys either. Looking at the early market here, this number is pushing more and more towards 3. We're at -2.5, -120 for the Packers at FanDuel. Obviously, Packers were pretty injured themselves against the Lions, especially in the secondary with Jair Alexander out last week, whereas the Seahawks have gotten pretty healthy in recent weeks, and that showed with their recent performance. Total in the game, 46.5 here as well. Judah, let's go to you here. Sunday Night Football, Seahawks, Packers. What are you liking?
Yeah, I mean, I think the Packers offense is a house right now, but so is the Seattle defense. I've talked about this, I think, for a couple of weeks now. And since the bye, which I'll use as kind of the benchmark for a team that got a lot healthier, basically all of their defensive starters missed some time at some point between like weeks 3 and 10. And since then, they are, I think, number 4 in rush success rate, number 3 in rush EPA. They lead the NFL in pass EPA. They're creating the most disruption of any team. They've been terrific on defense, and it's one thing to kind of anchor to some small sample of just any random team. I think it's very different when you're talking about a team where this bye is not only a time for kind of readjusting, but also it coincides with the team getting healthy. And also, we saw this exact pattern with Mike McDonald in the past. It is a very complicated scheme. This is a real phenomenon. These are not just players that are perfectly computed as a computer. Like, they are learning the scheme. And we saw this exact same thing in Baltimore a couple of years ago. The defense is getting better, and I think it is sticky. And where that's particularly intriguing is how Green Bay plays their offense. Is they're extremely run heavy, and they're going to try and hit some explosives. Can they do that against anyone? Yes. Do I think it's less likely against a Seattle team that's playing a ton of too high, trying to take away the explosive plays, and has done a great job slowing down the rush? Yes. And on the other side of the ball, the Packers defense has not been great. I'm curious what Jair Alexander's status is. I think he's obviously extremely valuable cornerback to them, but they don't have the pass rush that I think is causing Seattle so much of its troubles when they have slowed down. I mean, the Seattle offensive line's a disaster right now. But when I look at this game, I think this is a Seattle defense that is very underrated, especially in this matchup, and an offense that can put up points against a Green Bay defense that's really struggling. And I would really like this if Jair Alexander is missing this one also.
Yeah, really good breakdown from Judah there. I agree with a lot of the points. Just really interested to watch that game, honestly. It's a true, I think, litmus test for Seattle at home and Green Bay, who has a penchant for just turning it on at the midway point in the season and finishing strong, similar to the way that they did last year. We're treated to 2 Monday Night Football games this week. Let's start with the one that's kicking off first. It is the NFC North matchup with the Vikings hosting the Chicago Bears. The Bears suffered an absolute beatdown at the hands of the 49ers last week. The Vikings look pretty good. Sam Darnold in the fourth quarter lighting up the Atlanta Falcons defense. This one sitting at 7 right now, juiced pretty heavily towards the Bears, kind of in like that 6.75 range. Total has crossed through 44 up to 44.5. Austin, over to you here first. Vikings Bears, we saw this matchup pretty recently where the Vikings dominated. Bears came back with the old backdoor cover. What are we seeing here with the Vikings and Bears?
Yeah, that game got a little dicey, but halfway through the fourth quarter, the Vikings had a 14-point lead, almost had a monumental collapse there. And the Bears, did their thing and found a way to lose anyway. But I think the Vikings have some value here. I keep thinking to myself, like, Sam Darnold is going to come back to earth. And I think he might be playing better. Addison and Justin Jefferson make that a lot easier. And Kevin O'Connell is one of the best offensive minds in football. So I don't really have any worries about the Vikings offense here. The Bears are interesting. Caleb, I don't really love the matchup against the Flores defense. I know it's the second time he's seeing it, but for 3.5 quarters of that game, the Bears couldn't really do anything on offense in that game. But they've kind of been this team that's figuring things out after the game gets out of hand. We've seen that a couple times over the last month of the season here, but I don't see this team having the same success. That game was at home. The Vikings are this game's now in Minnesota. So I think that Flores is going to be able to adjust and not have that late game breakdown that they had. And again, there were other things that happened to let the Bears get back in the game there. But I think the Vikings have a significant matchup advantage on both sides of the ball here. And honestly, if you told me the Bears are a dead team here over the last 4 weeks of the season, I wouldn't be shocked. So I like the Vikings here.
Yeah, I agree with you, Austin. I think a lot of like the traditional situational handicappers might be looking to the Bears here, betting a team off a blowout loss. I don't know that the Bears are a dead team necessarily. I just think that they're a really bad team, honestly. The defense has really come down to earth. Andrew Billings going on IR hurt their run defense. I do think that the Vikings are going to be able to move the ball successfully in this game, and the Bears don't have a whole lot to stop it. On the other end, I already think the Bears defense is bad, and I don't really price the home away splits into my number either. But if you're someone who believes in that, Caleb has been atrocious away from home this year. He feels pressure that's not there a lot of times. It's a real challenge for this Bears team to move the ball. And again, I don't price that in, and I'm still above 7 in this game. If that's a thing and you want to believe in it, I could get even higher here. But I don't like the chances for the Bears to move the ball. The offense is too simplistic. The coaching staff, evidently it wasn't Eberflus that, well, he was a problem, but not the sole problem, I would say, in this particular instance. I see you laughing there, Judah. You don't like the splits. You don't like the splits commentary, do you? You're not big on that.
What can I say?
Yes, got it. All right, let's end it off with the final game. Atlanta at Las Vegas. Someone said, I hope they cover this game on the show today. Well, we weren't going to cover it until about 15 minutes before the show, where Hitman's like, you got to put this in. I have some thoughts. Right now, Atlanta sitting -3.5, -120 at FanDuel for this game. Hitman, break it down for us. What are you lean into in this one?
Yeah, I haven't bet anything with this game, but I like the Falcons if Ritter is the quarterback. Now, obviously, the market's going to move if Ritter gets announced as the quarterback instead of AOC in this one. But I'm kind of leaning towards that Ritter does end up being the quarterback. If you do believe, I kind of wonder if organizationally you're going to push AOC to play in this game when Antonio Pierce, I'm going to guess that he has job stability just because of the fact that the Raiders have fired so many coaches and have so much dead money, and it's not exactly the most wealthy organization in the NFL. I don't think that they want to pay yet another coach to not be coaching for them. And Pierce has been so adamant about the team needing a quarterback, and that's the difference between his team and all the other teams in the AFC West. You had the whatever it was last week where him and Deion Sanders were together, and Deion was imploring him to draft his son, Shador. Obviously, teams on the field, coaches on the field don't tank, but organizationally, teams sometimes will do stuff where that doesn't give them the best chance to win in a certain week. And I just wonder if they do end up pushing AOC out there to play in this game at not 100%. And I know sharp money is poured against Atlanta, specifically last week, but I thought that a lot of it was just Cousins health related. And I don't think he looked that bad last week. I mean, Atlanta had 7.1 yards per play on offense, 500 yards total. I thought just watching the game, Cousins looked okay. This being a week after Atlanta lost, outgaining the Chargers, 350 to 187. Atlanta has had a really tough schedule of opposing defenses. The past 3 weeks, this is by far the easiest matchup. I think that this is also the lowest point in market that we are getting Atlanta this year. So if I get a better sense that Ritter does start, then I'm interested in the Falcons, which there's some -3.5s out there. That would be appealing to me.
One thing that's really interesting to me with this matchup is everyone's been roasting Kirk in recent weeks, and for good reason. He's been pretty careless with the ball. Turnovers have been a big issue. I saw this in the True Media notes this morning. The Raiders have only created 8 turnovers this year, which is tied for the fewest takeaways through 14 weeks in the past 3 seasons. So you have a quarterback that is trying to turn it over at will against a team that simply can't force turnovers right now. And I wonder what's going to give in this particular game. All right, we're going to get to our best bets in just 1 second. If you enjoyed the content, or if you're just here to watch us try and mostly fail to crawl our way out of this season-long slump, it's fine. Just don't forget to hit the like button on YouTube and subscribe to Forward Progress. If you're listening to this after the fact on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, a 5-star review would go a long way in helping us grow the audience and maybe even restoring some dignity to this program as well, if you can. Drop your thoughts and picks in the comments. We love hearing from you, even if it's just to roast us for how bad we've been. Seriously, at this point, we deserve it anyway. So give us some comments. It does go a long way as well. Okay, best bets time. We're going to go with a traditional order here. Hitman, you have the best record. You won last week, even though producer Jason, as he's done probably at least a dozen times over the last couple years, has tried to screw you on the leaderboard. You did get a win last week. I did search it. It was a W, even though he put it as a dash there. The people listening didn't see it, but I saw it. I'm defending you. You get to go first. Let's make it a multi-win streak here. What's it going to be and why?
I feel like every chance Jason gets, he tries to screw me. The hitman just gets screwed in all instances, just like the Montreal screw job. But yeah, I'm going to go with Washington -7.5, -105. It's just me taking a stand that I don't think the Saints are as bad as the Giants, but they're in the same tier. It's a Giants level bad roster. This is a team that has 4.6 yards per play. And as Rob mentioned earlier, some of the worst success rate games in the league when Derek Carr was not playing. And some of those games had at least one of Taysom Hill, Rashid Shaheed, and Chris Olave in them. It's arguably the league's worst quarterback, worst pass catchers, bad offensive line, bottom 3 defense, bad head coach. I think that this Saints team is just somehow the 31st ranked team in the league is worse than what the market is saying. So, and on conversely, Washington, I believe that a lot of the Jaden Daniels struggles from earlier this year was health related. I presume he's 100% healthy now, and there is a big matchup edge for this Washington offense running the ball against the Saints defense. So Washington -7.5, 105.
All right, the commies for a commie himself, Hitman. All right, I'm going total for this one. Won't be a surprise probably to people at this point. I glossed over it while Austin was talking about it, but wholeheartedly agree with his take. And I'm taking the Arizona Cardinals and New England Patriots over the total of 46.5 -104 at FanDuel. You could play a flat 46 as well. Elsewhere, that is totally fine. This starts with the Patriots' inability to stop the run. And if we look at Arizona's struggles in recent weeks, they've played the Seahawks, the Vikings, the Seahawks, teams at full health in their front seven who have completely shut down the run, forced Kyler into some long third downs, and he's just unable to convert those. I think that they get back to their bread and butter of running the ball, working play action. The Patriots defense has improved a lot in recent weeks. If you look at their third down percentages, their havoc rate numbers, you'd say, well, this defense is pretty good, but there's some context that's important. And when we look at the teams that they have played in the last month, they have played teams that have been dealing with offensive line injuries throughout, especially the Colts a few weeks ago, the Rams without Rob Havenstein, the Bears who suffered multiple offensive line injuries as well before playing the New England Patriots. So I think we're selling the Patriots defense. We're buying the Cardinals offense. On the other side of of things as well, I think the Patriots can also run the ball, and their offense is so much more effective when they can run. You look at Arizona's run defense, it's actually been worse than New England's over the past month. They're giving up a 46% success rate. Only Jacksonville, Carolina, and oddly Pittsburgh have been worse in that stretch. But New England being able to run the ball works really well in their favor. They do pass pretty quickly when they're trailing in games. I think this will be a trailing game state for them as well. And ultimately, I think both offenses have good matchups here. So Drake May over and Rob. Yeah, it's less about Drake May in this particular matchup and more about the Cardinals offense getting back on track. But I do like the Patriots offense quite a bit when they are in a trailing game state against this Cardinals defense. Okay. Austin didn't have a pick last week, so he's going to go up next here. Austin, what do you like in this week as your best bet?
Yeah, I talked about it earlier. I'm gonna go with the Vikings. They're -7, -102, which is love not paying a price there. But I talked about it earlier. I think both sides of the ball can overwhelm the Bears here. For 3.5 quarters, when they played a few weeks ago, the Vikings dominated this game. Jordan Addison at a 90% success rate when targeted. Hawkinson at 67%. Jefferson at 50%. The Bears had no answer. And whether you want to look at the home away splits or not, the Bears offense has not been ideal with Caleb in there. So I think the Vikings can win by margin here.
All right, Austin going with the Vikings. By the way, last time Austin appeared on this show, I'll give him the credit that Hitman wants. But Austin gave out Joe Burrow 13-1 most passing yards in the NFL, which is a much better bet because of the price than Hitman's 9-1 comeback player of the year. So Austin gets the credit that Hitman I refuse to give to you. I did see the ticket you posted today, though, on Twitter. It's a good. You're actually betting this stuff, and you got the documents to prove it. That's good stuff. Those are both very live. Judah,
GRP would be proud. Hopefully, I'm not getting tracked soon.
Well, yeah, you don't want him on your case. No one wants GRP on their case. You need it. Judah, we're gonna end it here with you. I think you're going back to your bread and butter, which is an alt line. Might as well at this point.
I mean, it has been anything but a masterclass. Just have to go back. I think this is a Chargers defense that is overrated. They've been pretty bad against any of their formidable opponents. Tampa Bay has been a successful offense. They can pass, they can run. And I would be concerned about Justin Herbert's mobility given his injury, especially against the Tampa defense that has begun to blitz at a 60% rate over the last month of the season and is generating pressure at like 50%. I think this is a spot where Tampa Bay is going to score, and I'm not sure LA is going to be able to keep up. Tampa Bay -5.5 here.
All right, alt line there. I don't know if you saying this hasn't been a masterclass was a direct shot at me or just a slip of the tongue, but I guess maybe I don't want to know. Appreciate everyone who tuned in here today. Thank you to everyone in the chat over the course of the show. Really appreciate seeing the comments in real time. We do have a pretty good laugh at a lot of these behind the scenes. I'm not saying we're laughing with you. We just enjoy the interaction. So keep it coming over the course of the next week or so as well. That's going to be a wrap for our NFL Week 15 Best Bet Show. Thank you so much for tuning in and spending part of your week with us. For myself, Rob Pizzola, for Judah, for Hitman, for Austin Mock, check out his stuff at The Athletic, and our producer, who is back, Jason Cooper, behind the scenes. Thank you for coming along for the ride this week. Best of luck with your bets. As always, bet responsibly. We'll see you next time. And who knows, maybe Week 15 is the week that we turn it all around. See you next week, everyone. Peace out.